What does this rely upon? Emotion. This is like Black Lives Matter. It just really was an ad for Black Lives Matter. People did be angry. They sound angry when they're on stage. Slaves built this country. Slaves built this country. Slaves built this country. Everything that we have, we owe to slavery and slaves. And this is an argument for reparations.
Hey, Candace. The Civil War, it was about keeping slavery. How do we know? Well, the Articles of the seceding states, their declaration said it was about slavery. And Alexander Stephens, the Vice President of the Confederacy, said it was about protecting slavery. Slaves built this country. Slaves built this country. Candace, they keep repeating it because you're not listening. In the 1700s, 50 to 60% of the U.S. economy was based on cotton. Who do you think picked that cotton, Candace? It didn't pick itself, and any businessman will tell you, if they can get free labor, they're going to make a fortune. That's what they did. Oh, one other thing, Candy. Had the South won, you probably wouldn't be talking right now.
We've heard this nonsense over and over again from people who've never bothered to open a history book, or maybe they have actually. Maybe it's because they've opened history books in school that they learn this garbage nowadays. Actually, I would say it is because they open history book and they learn this garbage, which is just completely being washed with progressive ideals and not based in fact at all anymore.
Candace, whitewashing of history means changing or omitting or somehow writing history in a way to make white people look good. See, that would be the white part of whitewashing, Candace. Pay attention. Now, you must have heard about Texas when they wanted to call slaves immigrant workers. You see, Candace, that would be whitewashing. Yeah, they were immigrant workers, but they weren't exactly willing, were they? Perhaps you've heard of a man named Ron DeSantis who eliminated an entire African American history course and doesn't want to talk about slavery and racism because it might make white kids look bad. I don't think he's very progressive, Candace. You know, last I looked, Ron DeSantis did not have a Green New Deal. Nah, I don't think that they're rewriting the textbooks, but you go ahead and hang on to that.
I actually had, Mediaite, whatever that website is, write an article, hit piece on me for telling the truth about the history of slavery by saying that the majority of people did not have slaves. Obviously, a very small fraction of uber wealthy people had slaves, people that were fighting the Civil War. It was a poor man's fight and a rich man's war. They were not fighting to keep slavery in place. They didn't have slaves, right?
Now, Candace, you did say something that was true, and I'm sure it was accidental. But you're right. The majority of people did not own slaves. They were poor people fighting a rich man's war. You know why, Candace? Because that's how it works. The rich men owned the land, they had the money, and they had the slaves, and they ran the government and they wanted to protect their interests. Why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, because it still goes on, Candace. That's how it works, okay? The majority of people in the United States don't own corporations, don't have employees, they're not hiding money on Wall Street, and they're certainly not billionaires. No, the majority of people are just working people. But those rich people and those billionaires run the government, buy Congress people. Some of them might even been financing your operation, and they're into protecting their interests, up to and including going to war. That's how it works, Candace. And guess who goes to war? Not the rich kids. They're not lining up to join the military. No, a lot of the military are people who are joining for opportunity, and some people are joining because they have no choice. There's nothing else they can do. They are patriots, and I have the utmost respect for them, but let's not kid ourselves about why they joined the military. It might not have been their first choice, Candace. It might have been their only opportunity.
Well, I'm going to say something else that's going to offend people because it's true, right? The idea that this country and the success that this country had is because slaves built this country. History betrays this narrative, okay? Let me first say, obviously, we all know slavery was abhorrent. It was an abhorrent practice all over the world, did not begin in America, and actually did not begin with white people, right? It still goes on today, and it is black and brown people that keep those institutions up. And actually, white people were the first people to end the institutions of slavery.
So yes, Candace, this country was built on slavery. Why? Because initially, we had an agricultural economy. That's right. We sold cotton, we sold crops. And who do you think picked the cotton and the crops? The slaves. Was the North involved? Sure they were. The textile mills up north used that cotton to make textiles that were sold. The North also controlled a lot of the shipping and made a lot of the money. So yeah, it was about slavery, Candace. Now, as for white people ending slavery, well, yes, they did end slavery. Why? Because they owned the slaves, so they had to end slavery. That's how it works, Candace. Had it been up to black people, I suspect the slavery would have ended much sooner, because we didn't have too many black people like you.
Then of course, I thought to myself, women in the workplace. What about that one? Are we a distraction? Do you guys think we're a distraction? And the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, we kind of are a distraction. If you think about work in general, if you think about what men have to do when they go to work now, it's essentially just a bunch of landmines, right? Once upon a time, it was a man's world. Yes, I agree. And by the way, I want to make it clear, I am not making an argument that women should not have the right to work and should be relegated to the household. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but I am acknowledging that things have gotten worse at work since women joined the workforce.
And now Candace Owens says women are nothing but a distraction in the workforce. She actually said that she's not saying women shouldn't be in the workforce, but women are a distraction in the workforce, which is really another way of saying women shouldn't be in the workforce. Because what's one thing people don't want in the workforce? Distractions. Nobody running a company ever said, hey, we need some distractions around here. And by the way, Candace, you were talking fondly of when it was a man's world. Well, guess what? Back when it was a man's world, you wouldn't have had an opinion. That's right, Candace. The men didn't want to hear what you had to say back when it was a man's world. So the workplace is less productive with women in it. That's right, Candace. The women are just there to get the men all horned up. I mean, they couldn't be productive or creative or actually add to the workforce. No, they are simply there to distract the men with their sexy wiles or sexy ways. I think you've been watching too many episodes of Mad Men. I mean, what are you telling me? That the female legislators in Missouri aren't there to help pass laws, aren't there to represent their constituents? No, just to drive the men crazy by showing off those arms. Because nothing distracts men more than some hot arms waving around.
I think that men are having to deal with all these landmines everywhere. Do I say something? Do I not say something? I have to be careful on how I speak to this person because she's a woman. She might see this as some sort of an assault. Oh, do I tell her she looks nice today? Or is she going to think that that's inappropriate? Is it appropriate? Especially in the post-Me Too era, forget it. Do I say anything to her? Well, if I don't say anything to her, well, she's going to say that I'm ignoring her because I'm a man. If I say something to her, she's going to say I'm only speaking to her because I'm a man. I mean, I couldn't even imagine the internal dialogue that men must be having at work at all times.
Candace can't imagine the internal dialogue men are having at work. Well, Candace, maybe because that internal dialogue has nothing to do with you. Maybe the men at work are actually thinking about work. Maybe the surgeon is actually thinking about the patient, not having some hot nurse fantasy. Maybe whoever's making widgets on the assembly line is thinking about when is that clock going to strike 5. They're not thinking about the woman next to them making widgets on the assembly line. And okay, maybe there's a new rule about not commenting on women's appearance, but I don't think thinking about that rule consumes them 8 hours a day. Candace, I think the problem is you've been working around too many horny old Republican men who love making comments about you, and you think that's the way the world works. Candace, in the real world, people are at work thinking about work, or even better, thinking about how to get out of working.
And I laugh because this year, the Daily Wire had a Christmas party, and I didn't go for separate reasons, but I found out that the Christmas party was dry. And immediately in my head, I didn't say this out loud, but I'm saying it out loud now, I thought to myself, why is it a dry party? Who ruined it, right? Who ruined it? Why is there a dry Christmas party? Everybody knows Christmas parties are not supposed to be dry. But no, now, similar to Daily Wire, a bunch of corporations are saying, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Well, why are they saying let's not do that? I don't know for sure, but probably because they're avoiding traps.
Oh, Candace, no alcohol at the Daily Wire company Christmas party, which, by the way, I'm sure is the event of the season. You didn't even go. You didn't even go. Yet you have an opinion. You know, the only true thing you said is, I'm not sure. Because you're not sure, Candace. You don't know. Now, I'm pretty sure if you talk to HR at any large company, they're like, oh, no, we're not serving alcohol at the workplace because we have liability issues. We don't want them driving home drunk. We don't want them getting into fights. We don't want the employees saying what they really think, especially at the Daily Wire. Are you kidding? Do you know what kind of free-for-all that would be? No, Candace. It's not the women getting the men all horned up that they're worried about at the Christmas party. Sure, there might be an affair or two, but what are you going to do? No, they are worried about drunk people getting in trouble and suing them. It's all about the money, Candace. That's what they're focused on, not getting all horned up by women's arms.